It's Monday, October 12th, 2020. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about bricking things. So, we went upstate this weekend to do a long hike in the middle of nowhere. Like, that's something I feel like I can get away with.
That seems like a safe place.
Yep.
The middle of nowhere. If there's no people, you can't get sick, right? Coronavirus doesn't grow on trees.
Yep. And even then, if it did somehow, I'm not out there like licking trees. Like, I'm just walking through the woods, long distance.
The trees are having sex with your face, though.
Oh, yeah. That's a problem I actually ran into. My allergies have been weirdly worse this fall than they've ever been. And I don't know why. I've never had fall allergies before, but I have them pretty bad this summer for some reason. Anyway, so we're up by ourselves on a very long, difficult trail. Like, we figured the more difficult the trail is, the fewer people we'd encounter, which was correct. And we're like 15 miles into this hike. We're on our way back on this long trail from nowhere. And we see two people coming up ahead. So we pull our masks up and they pull their masks up. But then they like try to flag us down to like stop us. And we're like, uh-oh. And then I realized the trouble. One of them is holding a phone. I can clearly see that they have Google Maps up. And Google Maps
they're somewhere with service. That's good.
But Google Maps does not have trails in it. Like,
not usually, no. Unless you ask for like biking directions and the trail is bikeable, it won't give you walking trail directions.
Like,
it'll just be like, hey,
you,
there's a trail here.
Like some trails, some very, very popular big trails do show up if you zoom far enough in on Google, but most don't. So
also, some people you can, if you take photos and submit them, they'll show up on the map. It's like you can click and see the photos people have taken from particular spots.
Yep.
But it doesn't give you like a map. You have to,
So basically, they ask us like, "Hey, did you take the loop?" And we're like, "Loop? There's no loop trail. We just hiked like 15 miles. We've been hiking literally for like 7 hours." And they're like, and then like the one girl like looks really surprised. And like her hand shakes a little. And the older woman is like, "I told you." So we start talking to them. And eventually like she holds her phone out and she shows it to us. And they're trying to get back to their car. They've been hiking for hours. And they thought they were doing a trail loop. And they're like, "If we follow the blue trail, it's a loop, right?" And we're like, "No. Who told you that? Do you have a trail map?" They didn't have a trail map. They had nothing. And I see their Google. They have a pin where their car is. It is far away from where we are, and Google is just a green square. Like, there's nothing that zoomed in. And they're not even looking at the topographical map. They're looking at, like, the driving map. They clearly have no business being out in the woods, nevertheless, on a trail like this. So the more questions they ask, the more concerned we are that
how many miles are they from their car? They can just walk back, right?
No, because they had been hiking. So one, it is like 40 minutes to sundown. Two, we are easily hiking like 3 or 4 times faster than them. They are not fast hikers. They said they'd been hiking for several hours, but the direction they came from does not have several hours worth of hiking unless where they came from is not where they think they're headed or they did something really fucked up. We could not...
There's only two directions to go.
No, this is a complex trail system. There are lots of branching paths in this trail system.
But how many parking lots could there be?
There aren't really parking lots. There's trailheads. And where they described they had come from, there is no possible way that where we were headed, which was the only trailhead in that direction, was where they could have come from. So wherever their car was, there is no way they could get back to that car before dark. And
all they had to do is get to the modern escape, right?
Get to a road, call an Uber.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. They kept trying to ask for like help, and at this point,
as much as Uber is the worst thing ever, and I've never used them, and hopefully never will. They do have the advantage over taxis or old school car services because in the old days before the Uber types, if you tried to call a car service on the phone, that would be like, "Hey, send a limo to take me to the airport." You couldn't get someone to show up in a specific random spot to come get you like immediately. That wouldn't happen, right? But now it's like, actually, that is, I think, the one actually new service that those piece of shit gig economy taxis provide is. Yes, if you are in no matter if you're on a road somewhere, if it's a road that a car can go on, you could push buttons on your phone if you have phone service, and a car will come quick enough.
Well, think of it this way: those services are fine, except for the fact that they're exploitative gig economy. If they cost what they should cost,
that's also true, right?
So basically, we give them our trail map because even though I was using it to navigate like the rest of the way back to our car, I figured
You're
like
gonna get back.
Yeah, we're capable hikers. We know how to do this. We've been hiking.
You're gonna
7
make
hours.
it back where you came from.
But when we handed it to them, it was clear that they didn't understand it and couldn't really read it. And at that point, we just bailed because we wanted to get to our car before dark. So we wished them luck. And I basically told them, look, follow this trail you're on until you see a green trail. Turn right and follow that, because I knew that if they did that, it would be really hard for them to miss that green trail, and it will take them to a road. There is no parking on that road. Like, there's no trailhead there, but there is an actual road with a real number on it, so at least a passing car they could flag down in the dark, or an Uber could find them, because I was confident there was no way they could get back to their own car on foot.
Isn't there a park person that you could call?
Are you, well, they had no way to do that.
They're in a park.
Because they
had
didn't
the
know who to
phone
call.
that they were using Google Maps on.
They don't know who to call.
New York State Park something.
Yeah, they don't know that number. They could call 911, I guess. But what was funny
is Google it. You have a phone.
Yeah, and they didn't think to. So literally, right before we encountered these people, I was basically just bitching on the trail to Emily about like people just go out into these woods like not knowing what to do, and that like almost all rescues in the woods are people who just like walk out in tennis shoes with Google Maps and don't know anything, like never read a trail map in their life, don't know what trail markers look like, have no business being out here, and then we immediately encounter two people who are clearly in this situation. So we get to the end, we get to our car. There's no other cars because there's like not many places to park, except
so their car wasn't there.
There was one other car in that area. If that was their car, I cannot imagine how they got to where they were from that place. It was not a 2-hour hike. I think they just had gotten super lost. So it's either
it wasn't their car.
Yep. If it wasn't their car, someone else was out in the woods and the sun was about to go down. I do worry that a lot of people are hiking because it is one of the few pretty safe
how long
things.
did it take to get from those people to your car?
Our car, about an hour if you are extremely experienced at hiking, because it was very rough terrain. Probably 2 hours for like an inexperienced hiker.
So you couldn't be like, hey, follow us to our car and then...
Yeah, also I did not want to entangle myself with them.
Well, I mean, but yeah, and then be like, we're going to go this way.
Yep.
If you can keep up with us.
No, there was no way. But as they left, they were clearly beginning to have the fight that had started when they encountered us, and the older woman said, I told you. So I'm pretty sure they had the phone numbers to call. They had their phone that was working. Worst case scenario, some rangers had to put on masks and go out in the middle of the night and find them and take them to their car.
Well, I mean, if you're a ranger and like that's the level of emergency is someone is alive and healthy standing in the woods lost, you're fine dealing with that. It's your job. You're working then anyway.
That is actually most emergencies on trails like that is people just walk out there.
If it's not someone bit by a snake or, fell out of a tree or they got in a fight with a bear.
It's just,
you're okay.
You encountered a situation where someone, it's like in tech. Because it's Monday, I'll tie it back before we get into the news. Someone asks you a tech question, and you don't think, I will answer your question. You think the fact that they asked this question is a warning sign that they are doing something incredibly wrong. So you ask a follow-up question that then implies you just go down a darker and darker path as you ask more questions.
XY problem.
Like, I'm trying to get my battery to charge for my house, and you're like, your house has a battery? Please explain. Tell me what this battery looks like. Because I worry you were about to tell me about a room in your house filled with car batteries. So you got any news?
Do I have any news? All right. So this relates to our main bit today. It's where we got the idea for our main bit. But this person, who is a wealthy person, who's probably not a good person because they spent their money on a Ferrari at a time like this.
It's hard to be a good person if you own a Ferrari.
Regardless of where not just, you
I
could have an old Ferrari.
I said hard.
Anyway, they bought a brand new Ferrari and they immediately took it to an auto place to have, because they wanted to change the seat, right? They wanted to replace the seat that the car came with a different seat, which is, if you're already the kind of person who buys a brand new Ferrari from the dealership, right? Then you're the kind of person who would like customize the car. All right, that's reasonable, whatever. And what happened was while they were at the dealer, the repair place, the repair place was like an indoor underground garage type situation. It wasn't like outdoors, right? So there was no cell service inside the place where the car is being worked on. And as soon as they like took the seat out of the car, they believe that what happened, all right, I don't know how true this is, but their understanding was that there is some sort of anti-tampering system in the car. And the anti-tampering system in the car basically said, well, someone's messing with this car and they're not supposed to, right? It's a very expensive car. So the car is now going to refuse to operate until, the Ferrari has confirmed, right, that yes, the car is, not been stolen or vandalized or who knows what, right? Which is, a fine security feature on something that costs $250,000. The problem was Ferrari, Cloud Ferrari, wherever they are, right, couldn't remotely disable the anti-tampering system because the car was not in, cell signal area, right? It was underground. So I imagine they had to get some dollies and wheel or tow the car outside somehow in order to give it signal, and then somehow get Ferrari to unbrick it or something. It's just you can read in this. It's I don't know how confirmed this is because it's just a thread on Reddit, but it's a believable story, and there's a lot of comments discussing it, and it's very interesting because at least I have not heard of. I've heard of cars having various problems with DRMs and things like, hey, you can't repair your John Deere because of DRM and stuff like that. But this is the first I've heard about a car just being bricked by accident.
It
right?
wouldn't
I've heard
surprise
of cars
me.
being bricked remotely if they have a LoJack style GPS theft detection where the owner is like, my car's gone. They just remotely disable it, intentionally.
So a common occurrence of that, where there's a failure that bricks a car, is very specifically inflicted upon poor people who have secured loans for a cheap car from a dodgy place.
Repo Man installs the thing, or they buy the car from a financer who puts
every
a thing
month
in
you
there.
make your payment, it gives you a code. You have to key the code into the car, or the car bricks itself. And if the car leaves a certain geographic region, it also bricks itself.
Or you could disable that system.
Yeah, it's it's usually against the terms of your loan, and the car will be repossessed if you disable that system.
How would they know? If you have to disable it in some way where it knows that
some of these systems phone home. They have a cell phone in them basically, and they phone home to check every day.
So it's reporting correctly, but you've disconnected it from the car, so it can't actually brick the car. Like you take the system out, you put it in your house. It thinks you're just keeping the car at your house, and the car works.
Yep, it's hard to say. That might be moderately difficult. I also don't think the kind of person...
I didn't say it'd be easy. It's just possible.
Yeah, but also the kind of person who is in that situation probably does not have the bandwidth to do that level of complex operation.
If you were smart enough to... Yeah, if you had the skills to do that, then you have the skills to make money to pay for a car.
Yeah.
Right? You could sell those skills to other people who need the services, and then you don't need those services anymore.
But the moral in general, which we'll get to in the main bit, is generally if something requires any sort of communication or has a security system that can be accessed remotely, you are potentially very much at risk of that communication link failing in some way. Like if I'm on a trip and my Creative Cloud needs to be renewed because I haven't logged in a while and I don't have internet, I'm just effed.
All right. Is there any other news? What news is going on? So I just want to mention that tomorrow is, because we previously talked about Apple's iPad iWatch event, which was in September, and there should have been iPhones then, and there weren't. And the iPhone event is actually tomorrow, the 13th of October, which might be today for most of you listening, if anyone's the one person listening. Thanks Apple for putting the Apple event one day after I Need Tech News twice in a row.
I should raise a complaint. Apple, you're really messing up the GeekNights schedule here.
We'll see if I replace this iPhone 7 or not, because it's still working fantastically, and I don't really go out.
I was about to say, I feel like I'm not, even if my ancient phone
all right,
dies.
I mean, there's a chance that the new iPhone has, all the features I want, and it's perfect, and I heard there is going to be a smaller one, so, it might be, if I am going to get that one, why would I wait? I would just get it immediately, but... If
you're not going anywhere, just wait a year and get the little update to that one.
Right, exactly. If they're not unbelievably perfect, if there's any kind of just say iPhone 7 for another year.
I feel like if my phone broke, I wouldn't even replace it until after COVID calms down.
I still need the phone. There's some things the phone does that like the iPad and the iWatch don't do.
I guess navigating. No, because my watch can do that without the phone.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't really need the phone right now.
Okay.
So,
I do use the phone. I don't know.
So in some other, I mean, I make all my phone calls online, and I also have a Google Voice number that isn't even tied to the phone that I can just use directly on a computer. So.
Oh, I use the phone to make. I could make phone calls on the iPad though.
So I stumbled onto this while I was looking for an unrelated thing, and it didn't make a lot of big news. But basically, what's going on here? Spotify, one of all the different music streaming services, are all really fighting over market share. Like that industry is really locked in a race to the bottom for a lot of reasons.
And it's actually, I just want to say, as some, not speaking for my employer in any way, right? This is my own personal talking, just in case. I don't think. But I do work for a music publisher, right? So the race to the bottom is a problem for music people in the music industry, because what you have here is, we finally escaped mostly, music piracy, right? So now it's like, musicians, songwriters are getting paid when people listen to their music on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, right? People are legally paying, or there's advertising supporting, people getting paid when someone listens to their songs, which is good. Because even if I don't believe in copyright laws, I believe that creative people who are making art should get paid for it, right?
Yep.
By some mechanism, even if that mechanism is not the existing awful copyright
It's not capitalism.
system. Right, exactly. However, what happens here is you have Spotify, Apple Music, etc., competing, right, on features and also on price, right? And by competing on price, they want to lower their price, right? They don't want to charge a lot of money. They want to have more users, because Apple doesn't actually want to sell Apple Music. They want to sell iPhones.
Yep.
Right? Spotify does want to sell Spotify, but they can't if someone's undercutting them, right? They're happy to lower their price to get the most users, especially since a lot of their money does come from the free users who are listening to ads. Therefore, more users is better, because then a Spotify ad costs more because it will have more listens. And that hurts. People always talk about Spotify not paying music people anything. Well, guess what? Spotify charging less hurts music people, because now there's less money to divide amongst the
same reason
songwriters.
Why the fact that a AAA video game costs the same number of dollars today in 2020 that it cost in 1989.
Exactly. The songwriters, the musicians, the music industry wants Spotify to charge more money, which, and then therefore there would be more money to divide amongst everyone who has music on Spotify, which makes total sense from their perspective, but charging $50 a month makes no sense because I'm not paying that.
Yep.
Right.
Well, especially because in the era when it became more difficult for me to pirate good music, like around the time I left RIT, there was like an era of I didn't pirate a lot of music, but there wasn't streaming services yet. I just didn't listen to as much new music.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people are like that. A lot of people, music is a secondary concern or a background concern. They're not really going to pay for the primary activity of listening to albums. Like that is a much smaller market.
YouTube videos that are a song or a music video are still like the number one, right? But those all have ads on them.
Yep. I mean, you can also choose not to see those ads, but that's all a separate conversation anyway.
And I'm pretty sure YouTube View is going to get you more money than a Spotify listen.
So it's really hard to compete on price because of what we just talked about. It's also hard to compete on features because there's only so many features you can give someone around listening to WAV files.
Pretty much, yeah. Or MP3s or whatever kind of file you got.
Listening to the modulation of air around your body. There's only so many ways to make that experience more pleasant that are not hardware.
Even if there are newer, better ways, we haven't thought of them yet. They're harder to think of.
Yep. But like, make a playlist, get recommendations, like that stuff. Everyone has that stuff.
Yeah, I could say though, the Spotify recommendations are like, I could switch to Apple Music. I have all these Apple devices, right? It wouldn't. It wouldn't be a problem.
All the services give me the same level of like high quality recommendations. They're all very accurate. Like, I don't know what.
The Spotify recommendations have been better, I think, lately. So it's like, that's.
Well, it partly like YouTube actually gives me the best recommendations, but I think that might be because
sometimes
I listen to more music on YouTube than I do other services. So YouTube has more data about me. So
that's also true. As I have listened to more music on Spotify. Maybe that's why it's right.
So the third way you can compete is lock-in, and that is where they're going now. According to a bunch of articles I found, Spotify is going after developers of apps, basically threatening to cut off all API access if they violate the terms of service, and one particular clause that says you cannot help people migrate anything to another service under any circumstances if you use our APIs. Even like...
Can I manually export my Spotify playlist? Not that I have that many.
Not easily. Like, you can do a manual process.
Oh, here I go. You can go to a Spotify playlist, and you can right click and go to share and do...
So basically there's a ton of apps.
You can share it somehow.
Yep. There's a ton of apps.
Make it public.
That will basically be your single point of interface for all the streaming music services you subscribe to and do cool stuff. And basically all of them now just recently removed their take my playlist from Spotify and recreate it on another service because Spotify is cutting them off of the APIs. Spotify is doubling down on lock-in.
Wouldn't the point of those third-party services be that you would make playlists on those third parties, and then that way you could mix Spotify exclusive and Apple Music songs together in a playlist that would be on their service and not on Spotify or Apple Music?
But people a lot of people use Spotify for a long time. Like, I had an old Spotify account and made a bunch of playlists in there, and they want to copy those playlists to a different service. Yeah. And
I did not realize that there is not an easy way in the Spotify UI to export a playlist.
And now that Spotify is going after the users of their API, it's very clear why that's not easy.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
in fact,
in
the clause is specifically...
iTunes, I'm pretty sure, still supports like old M3U playlist files.
In fact, their terms of service even specifically calls out you cannot transfer any content of any kind to, quote, another music service that competes with Spotify.
While I agree, if I make a playlist, it's kind of bullshit that they don't have a way to export it, except for obviously manually writing it down and retyping it, right?
Yeah.
But I do agree, actually, that if you have a playlist that was generated by Spotify's AI, for example, Discover Weekly, Release Radar, right? It's like you can kind of see a valid argument for like, okay, you're using Spotify to generate, you're taking advantage of the AI on Spotify to generate a really good playlist for you and all the data it has. And then you're going to listen to that playlist on Apple Music, and Spotify's not going to get any money for it, even though they did all the work. There's some validity to that argument there.
Yeah, but I think most people have playlists they made themselves, like mixtapes.
Yeah, if you make a playlist by hand, let me see. If I made this playlist by hand, I did, and it doesn't seem like there is a way to export it. Oh wait, no, there's a download button. Oh no, that just downloads all the songs into the cache.
So I found one app, I think it's For Your Music. There's a million apps that do this stuff, and they have a statement where they were like, we're going to keep offering this service because we don't use Spotify's API or SDK to make it work. So they're doing some sort of scraping.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I really wanted to, I could do it, right? I know how to computer, but I'm from the perspective of just a Spotify user, I right-clicked on a playlist and there was no option to do anything.
Yep. But I think it is a worrying sign when Spotify starts going after the third way, the lock-in path, because the lock-in path usually is the sign of a failing service. That is not a path that works.
I don't think Spotify's a failing service, but I do think that there's just less things. All the music services, they're running out of things to compete on because they already went through this process of getting all the different musicians and major artists to relent and have their music on the services. So they're not really competing on library anymore. It's like it's really hard nowadays. It used to be like Beatles aren't on there, Led Zeppelin's not on there, right?
I remember that day.
Right, and now it's like everyone's on everything. It's like it's really hard to think of a band.
Plus, you get to another situation. There's enough content out there that where if a particular act isn't on one service, the people using that service just won't even know that band exists. Like, welcome to the modern world.
Yep.
So, in some other news, Scott's always mad about Elon Musk and SpaceX.
Well, all rich guys, but he's a particularly bad rich guy. He's like as close to, real world Lex Luthor as you're going to get in 2020.
He's getting real close to like the company OCP in the RoboCop cinematic universe.
Basically, I think he does that on purpose. Right? I think that's like his goal. I don't
Yeah.
think it's unconscious. I think he's like, yes, that's what I want to be.
I just imagine at some point he's the one sitting in the room where you hear in the background, somebody call a paramedic because the robot just fucking like murked someone. But anyway.
That probably has happened literally and already, right? Effectively the same thing.
So we're not going to talk about the billionaire problem, and we're not going to talk
Weren't there
about
talks about like injuries at the Tesla factory and shit,
Yeah.
I think I heard.
So the news, and there's a lot to this topic. We're only going to cover the top news. But if you didn't see it, the Pentagon is basically contracting SpaceX to do the thing that we always assumed it would do. SpaceX and space exploration with humans, especially when the commercial side is involved, is primarily not about exploration and research. It's primarily about the military. That is how it has always been. That is how it likely always will be. And now people are reacting to this news that SpaceX is going to deliver a rocket that is designed to deliver a military payload anywhere on Earth within an hour.
Well, I think what is clear, what has happened, which we sort of realized years ago, but I think other people are starting to realize, is you think about, the so-called military-industrial complex, right? You think of these companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, right? Yeah, you think about these companies that make weapons, defense machinery, submarines, right? And they're all private companies that are in league with, the government, right? And we give a lot of our tax money to them via corruption, but some legitimacy, but some not, right? Mostly not. And that's just been what the U.S. is all about. And now what's happened is SpaceX / Tesla / Elon Musk Industries, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? At first appeared to not be one of those companies. It was almost like a consumer facing thing. Like buy a Tesla. You can buy a Tesla. You can't buy fucking anything Lockheed Martin sells. They don't sell a damn thing to you, right? So you don't, cause people, just normal people, citizens, right, who aren't involved in directly, don't view those companies the same way as they view SpaceX or Tesla or whatever the fuck he's got going on over there, right? But really, there's no different at this point. It's like, yeah, this SpaceX / Tesla / whatever just is one of those companies. It's not really any different. So this news is basically like if the news said Pentagon has contract with Lockheed Martin to make rocket that delivers weapons, right?
Yep.
Why would no one would give a shit? Well, this is that news, just different company. News should actually be SpaceX steals contract from Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin stock goes down and SpaceX stock goes up. They're in the same industry.
There's a very important point people really need to understand about like NASA and space with the U.S. government is that NASA does not do everything on its own. It never did at any point, and these private companies are all involved on government contracts, and it's very complex how this stuff gets done. But all of that is valid. There's a lot of valid criticism around the situation going on here, especially why should we be investing so much in the military-industrial complex during a global pandemic and the rise of fascism, etc. All valid points. The only thing I want to point out to the nerds who are mad about this is that you need to be mad about it for the right reasons. The capability that they're describing is not particularly novel and is going to happen anyway. Similar to how the internet arose from the military-industrial complex and then became also a private sector thing. If you talk about the U.S. military in particular, not all militaries on Earth. This primarily only applies to the U.S. military because there are almost no other militaries on Earth that have the concept of real, like, global force projection capabilities. The U.S. military is primarily a logistics organization. The violence doing is actually like the end stop. There's like 50 steps before the violence happens at the end. And the power of the U.S. military and the value of it to the U.S. as an entity. And again, yes, there are a lot of problems with the power of the U.S. as an entity. I'm not arguing that this is not the case.
Right. The main argument would be like, yeah, all these positive things it is doing, we could just have that money go to a different non-violent organization to do the same damn thing.
Yep.
Right?
But basically,
we could have invented the internet at the Technological Research Foundation or whatever, something like that. Some other institution that didn't have an end goal of violence, right? And gave them the same tax money to invent the internet.
Since the beginning of the modern era, like World War I type, war has primarily been an exercise in logistics. So the most important part of the U.S. military is actually probably Transcom or U.S. Transcom, which literally just get shit from one place to another place. very similar, like the same techniques.
Yeah, it's like
technology.
we've been at like people talk about forever war, right? It's like we're at this forever war in Afghanistan. It's true.
Yeah.
You know how much we don't make anything in fucking Afghanistan. It's not like weapons factories there, right? It's not Command and Conquer where your factory is 5 feet from your tank, right? The tanks and whatever they're using over there is made far, far away. And we've been forever warring. We are constantly delivering and retrieving people, food, staff, equipment, right? Non-stop, right? That is the most of the operation is the moving of the stuff.
Yeah, in fact, there's only one difference between...
The using of the stuff is costing way less energy and way less money than the delivering and retrieving of the stuff.
There is basically only one difference between military logistics for transportation and civilian logistics for transportation. The latter, the primary goal is low cost and or efficiency. The primary goal of military is cost is not a factor, get it there as fast as possible. The military side overlaps heavily.
Also safely.
Oh, yeah. Well,
without
not
anyone
always.
compromising. Well,
not always.
Hopefully
Safety,
without anyone stealing it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Securely.
That securely, but not necessarily safely.
Oh, right. Not safe for the people doing the delivering. They might get blown up, but securely in that no one steals it, right?
Now,
or messes with it.
This is where it gets, this is why this is such a complicated issue. There is an overlap between those two when it comes to things like disaster response. Like, imagine if a Chernobyl happened today or a horrible hurricane, big disaster. The type of logistics you need to get help to people is the same logistics you need to get harm to people. It's military-style logistics, not civilian-style logistics.
Right. UPS
civilians will try to save money.
Right. UPS is not going to successfully deliver, right, water, blankets, whatever you need.
Because you can't ask someone getting paid that little to risk their life to deliver something somewhere. But someone in a military-type organization, their job is to risk their life to do the thing. So what this technology is fundamentally, basically the C-17 is like the way cargo gets delivered in a, like when you got to get it there fast. And it takes a while. It can take about a day. This is a rocket that can deliver that amount of payload, like one cargo container.
A C-17's worth of payload?
Anywhere on Earth in an hour.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yes.
That's not like a box in PUBG, right?
That's like supplies.
Well, I guess the weight. I guess since it's going to space, the weight also matters, right? You probably couldn't deliver, even though you could fit several tanks in like a C-17.
Yeah.
You couldn't deliver tanks via space. They're too heavy.
Yeah.
But you could deliver a plane's worth of food.
Now, I do not know, for all my nerdery, I do not know a lot about modern transportation infrastructure in the military. I don't know a lot about how much the C-17 can deliver. I do know that the U.S. does not make C-17s anymore, and there's actually starting to be a crisis.
What do they use now?
The existing C-17s. Don't break any.
Oh, okay. I mean, they also use boats. Boats are good.
Yeah, but they don't serve the same purpose. Boats take orders of magnitude longer.
Of course, but they could deliver way more shit.
Yep. But imagine a disaster where we need to get supplies to a town to survive the next week before like a supply chain can be created to get through the disaster area to get there. Military logistics is the only way to do that. And this type of technology can be used equally to deliver harm-doing materials to do harm and deliver life-saving materials to save lives. The problem is never the technology. It's the priorities of the civilization that's funding it and how they choose to use those resources. There are a lot of things to complain about here.
There is a question, though, always to be asked, though, is like, you know, when you have airplanes, how much is a rocket ever really necessary? Like, when is the airplane not good enough and you need to use the rocket?
So the difference is, and this is where I'm being a little soft because I am not an expert in this at all at this point. I'm an expert in like this technology from 50 years ago because I'm a nerd. Basically, imagine you have to deliver important supplies that only are available from certain places to somewhere on the other side of the globe, like a remote location. It could take 24...
How often does this happen?
Disasters and wars, like rarely. This is not... You don't use this like every day. Like saying we're going to use this technology is like on the level of we're going to launch a rocket. Literally, because it's launching a rocket. So this is a capability that it probably does make sense for humans to have. The problems you should be railing at are all the problems we already talked about, not the existence of this specific technology.
Also, keep in mind the military, the budget is so ridiculous, right? They have so much money. Most of these things, these contracts they hand out to companies or whatever to develop this or that, a lot of it is just pie in the sky stuff that it's like maybe they invent it and don't use it. It never goes into production. It never proves to actually be useful. Maybe they try it doesn't even work. Right.
Yep.
They're constantly doing that stuff. That's like every damn day. If you go look, send some FYI requests or look at stuff that's already public at like, what is the Pentagon spending its research money on? What's DARPA up to? Whatever. It's like, you're going to see a lot of crazy shit that they're working on and you'll get mad.
So think about it this way, though. It's like, the slowest way to do something is civilian boat transport. And then there's faster, but more costly, not just in terms of dollars, but in terms of risk, in terms of climate change, in terms of societal impact.
I'd say the slowest way would be civilian pigeon transport.
Well, it depends on where you're going. Let's say it's like you're trying to deliver something from...
I guess a pigeon flies faster than a person walking.
Let's say you're trying to deliver critical, technological and human aid supplies from... a military base in the United States, like a supply depot, to like the Horn of Africa for some reason, or Antarctica because there's some like a science. The thing happened down there, and we got to get some supplies down there.
Okay, you don't want the thing to steal them.
Yes, great. Now the thing has all of our guns.
And he learned how to use them.
Anyway, it's time for Things of the Day. So what do you got?
The thing of our day.
Not that thing, though it is adjacent to the thing, tenuously. Your thing of the day, at least.
What was it again? Oh, right. So
Skelebro.
It's Halloween. It's Halloween times. So the skeleton energy is back.
Especially because the Home Depot skeleton exists.
Yep.
I want to buy that Home Depot skeleton so bad.
I don't want to give Home Depot any money.
I know, but I want that skeleton. I want to just assemble it in the courtyard behind my building in the middle of the night and never say a word about it.
I think people would know because they'd see it get delivered.
I know. I got to figure out a way to make this happen. Maybe I should set it up in a public park in the middle of the night. Anyway.
So this person has a nice fake skeleton they got, and they put a t-shirt on it that says, hide and seek champion or something like that,
of
right?
2020.
Of 2020. And you think you're watching this video, it's just a little Twitter video, and you're thinking when this video's going, they're just going to hide the skeleton somewhere. And I thought the video was going to be like, okay, then they would play hide and seek with a kid, and the kid would find the skeleton and be scared, right? But no, the video goes into a much more hilarious place. You can so I did not see coming, and mad props to whoever made this video and thought of this clever idea. You are a skeleton champion.
It is. No spoilers, just watch the video. The video is 39 seconds long. Like, I think you can watch this whole thing.
I think you have 39 seconds. You're wasted a lot more than 39 seconds listening to us.
We've talked about this video for well more than 39 seconds already.
I know, right?
But all I'll say is that this type of prank very much has good night for flying energy. Like, it's that level, which is my favorite kind of prank on Earth. So, you might have a house. And if you have a house in the U.S., there's a decent chance at some point raccoons are going to get into your fucking house. Like,
if you live in an area with raccoons, there's no raccoons in Florida, right?
Yeah, there are. There's raccoons, I think, almost everywhere in North America.
I've never seen a raccoon in Florida.
Raccoons are
really
very
warm places.
widespread. Do I need to pull up the map of raccoon habitat?
I've seen. I mean, there's raccoons clearly everywhere north of that, right?
Let's see, a map of where are raccoons in North America. Let me find a map. All of North America. Literally all of it except the Arctic.
All right, well, I've never seen a raccoon in
Also,
Florida.
Much of Central America.
Ooh.
In fact, last time we were in Costa Rica, I remember a great moment where we're eating dinner at this fancy outdoor place, and a bunch of raccoons just kind of wander up, and like I feel a tug at my leg, and I look down, and there's a raccoon just like tugging on my pants, and when I look down at him, he holds his hands up and starts begging.
All right. Oh, they're smart.
Yeah, they know what's up. So basically, if raccoons get into your house, like what do? You call an animal like rescue type place. They will show up and deal with the raccoons.
That's not what we did.
What did you do?
We just locked the trash. We just locked the trash cans harder.
No, I'm talking like if they're in your house, like they're living in the attic.
House. Oh,
Like you go to your shed one day and they're living in the shed.
We kept them out. We didn't ever let them get in the house. They were always outside the house.
Yeah, there's they don't get in your house unless you don't maintain your house, but it happens. Like there's ways raccoons get in. So when they're actually in your house, what this video is it's a channel that I subscribe to that is great called Gates Wildlife Control. These people, there are inhumane people who will just like murder them and like get them out of your house.
Oh yeah.
But there are much better places that usually charge less money too that will get rid of them, but they'll do it in a nice way. And this is one of those companies. And this video...
my guess would be you get some sort of bait and a trap that doesn't hurt them, and then you take the trap, the same thing you do with like a stray... It's basically the same thing you're just supposed to do with stray cats, is where you catch them, you take them to get spayed or neutered, then you release them again.
So this video is that, but what's cool about it is, in our friend group, we've been having a lot of fun talking about people failing to correctly fell a tree. So this is a video that sort of explains, here is how you safely and humanely get raccoons and raccoon babies out of your attic. Like, what does this look like? And the guy explains every step of the way, like, all right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And the best part about these videos is the baby box. Because basically what they'll do, they scare the mom away, and then they get the babies out, and they put the babies in a box that can't be opened from the inside, but could be opened by the outside. They leave it outside the place they scared the mom out of, because they know the mom is going to come back that night, get the babies, and take them somewhere else. And it explains in detail this whole process. Not only do you get all that detail and you'll learn a lot, but you get to see a whole bunch of really cute baby raccoons.
I think the key thing there, obviously, is you don't want to leave, after you trap the raccoons, you can't just leave them there. You got to make sure you get the trap and
They like failure modes.
I think that happens a lot, is like people will trap animals and like forget, and then that's bad.
Yep. People will do that. People will trap a mother raccoon, release her in the woods somewhere, but leave the babies in their attic, and then that leads to a tragedy. Like that happens a lot because people are stupid. This video just goes into all that detail, and it's just fascinating and adorable. In the meta moment, we're not reading stuff because we don't have time. I don't know what you want.
And in the meta moment, there are no conventions on the schedule whatsoever.
In fact, PAX Unplugged finally announced that they are canceled. Thus,
we knew that they were canceled for a long time.
Still pretty sure
there are not even any online conventions for us to go to.
Maybe there are. Tell us.
Convention. Yeah, tell us or tell the convention to have us. And maybe we'll go to it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we've done a bunch of stuff at cons. I have the video from our panel at PAX Online. I have a director's cut of that will be up on our channel this week. So if you missed that panel and you don't want to watch it in the middle of like a 9-hour video of that theater from the day our panel happened to be, I have a director's cut that actually has a little more content and is edited a little bit differently and uses our overlays and our camera angles instead of the PAX overlay and the PAX camera angle. So that'll be up this week. I'm going to do the same thing for our other panels as soon as I get a chance.
If you're looking for a convention atmosphere and there's no conventions to go to, you should come to the official Geek Nights Discord. You can find links to it, I guess, if you come to our website, frontrecruit.com, or our forum.
You know what? I'm going to make an invite link right now while we're doing the main bit, and I'll post it in the chat of the live stream.
Okay.
It'll last like 48 hours.
Sure. But yeah, you should go to our YouTube stream. We stream all Geek Nights episodes live, and there's probably some things that you'll hear there that will, like a few sentences maybe, that are edited out of the actual MP3 that's uploaded to whatever service. We're on every single podcasting service, even the new shitty ones like Amazon, Google, everything. We're everywhere. Also, we're
in your raccoon wounds.
Yeah. I've been biking to nowhere. I just finished a 6-week Bike to Nowhere program in the Bike to Nowhere app. And when I bike to nowhere, I turn on the Twitch stream because then I can talk to someone while I'm biking to nowhere. It makes it much less sad.
Also, playing a lot of Star Wars Squadrons. And if you're also playing that, I'd be happy to suit up and fly with you.
Yep. So if you want to come and talk to us, you can come to our Discord. You can come to my bike Twitch stream. You can come. We're every single place. We're there. You're listening to this. You already know. Yeah. You already know where we are, right? So come on down.
All right. Let's just get right into it. Brickings stuff. We never really talked about this except tangentially talking about other things. Like, I think we even mentioned it recently. We did that show on firmware stuff. And
I just talked about that guy got a Ferrari. He's got bricks.
Exactly.
Right?
But I think it's actually worth talking about, like, really what this means, because there's a lot of issues around the concept of bricking, and some of them edge into society issues, some of them edge into capitalism issues, some of them edge into these are things you just need to know if you're going to mess with your own technology. Like,
So I mean, as a popular, I'm sure there's probably some example of bricking that's way older than you imagine, right? Even though I can't think of it. But bricking is like a relatively new phenomenon in like the greater, I don't know,
world. It arose partly with once we went away from using just raw circuits. Like, I'm trying not to use a bunch of electronics jargon here because I don't think all of you are super up on that. But there was an era where we'd use analog circuits and analog logic, like logic gates, like put a bunch of AND or NAND gates together on a breadboard along with a bunch of relays and mechanical devices. And you would implement the logic of your thing, like a furnace, in quote unquote code, but the code was this collection of wires. So
like a pinball machine.
Yeah, there's nothing like if you want to update it, move the wires around. If the wires break, replace them. You can look at the wires.
There have always been cases of things being broken, right? Broken things go way back. In fact, now things are probably less broken than they've ever been, right?
Yeah.
Things used to need a lot more like TV repairmen and stuff. When's the last time you heard of a TV repairman, right?
Yeah.
So,
part of that is our disposable culture of if a TV breaks, it's cheaper to throw it away and buy a new one than it is to have a human even look at it.
Of course, that is true as well. But the point is things just break less often, right? It's also, it is that, but it's also TVs used to break a lot and you'd need to get them repaired.
Yep.
When's the last time you had a broken TV?
And also, things have gotten cheaper and are more accessible to people. And the part that a lot of older people like to forget, especially people who complain about the durability of modern things do a lot more than old things did. Old furnaces, old thermostats, there's like one fucking switch in there.
Yep. But anyway, so the point is that, things have always broken, right? Human-made devices of any kind have always broken, but they could then be repaired in some way, right? Because the device in and of itself and common tools and common materials were all that you required to repair the device and make it work again.
Yep. In some cases, even common knowledge.
Yes, today we have many devices out there, and those devices include general purpose CPUs, right? Not a general purpose CPU like that's a very powerful one, like the one in your desktop computer, but like a very small 8-bit chip, something that's like you'd find in your NES.
Yes, you can go buy a CPU that runs at like a few kilohertz and just does logic.
Some sort of Motorola something or Texas Instruments, some chip or whatever that can run tiny programs. We're talking like, similar to like your Arduino, right? It's something, it won't be that exact architecture, but there's a lot of microprocessors in the world that you can buy if you're making products, right? And just about every product has microprocessors in them. Your car has probably ARM CPUs in it, right? Somewhere running different systems.
Yep.
And those systems have software. And if you have a desktop computer or even a phone, then you have consumer tools that allow you, to some level, to some degree, modify that software. You can reinstall your OS on your computer. Even if you don't know how, it can be done.
Yep.
So you can call someone to do it, right? And the software is available. You can get another computer and download that software, right? If you're, I don't know, what's something else that has software? A
TV has software, like you can download an app onto it or like hit the factory reset button.
Right. But a lot of devices out there that aren't just personal computers, right? Say your refrigerator. Your refrigerator has software. It has CPUs in it probably, right? If it's a fancy one.
Mine doesn't, but our fridge is not fancy.
Oh, but I'm saying there are fridges out there that do have CPUs, right? Maybe a better example.
Furnaces and like HVAC are really good examples.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. But there's plenty of just devices you buy that have CPUs in them. They are computers. There are computers inside. And those computers are required for the device to function properly, sometimes required for it to function at all, right? Or for the advanced features of the device to function. It might just work really stupidly if you don't have the computer parts working. Right? So you don't have access to that software at all. There's not like they give you a copy of the software. There's no interface on the device that is customer accessible, right, for you to replace the software, even if you did have the software. It's not like there's an SD card slot and like a load firmware button.
I was about to use an example metaphor that I realize is actually too old for our audience, probably, around the extra buttons A, B, C, D on a phone that a consumer phone does not have, but a telephone operations person, a repair person, has those extra buttons to do extra things on the phone network. But I don't think anyone knows about that anymore.
Yeah, people who produce electronics or make embedded computers or embedded devices, there are certain computer interfaces that they use, things like JTAG, which are like these debug interfaces. Like if you're developing a circuit board, you'll usually put like a JTAG connector on it, and you'll connect your debug device, things to that. And that way you can develop the circuit board. But then when you go into mass production, you either don't include that, so there's no way to access those pins, or you don't put the connector on, or it's just hidden inside the device. You don't know it's there as a customer. And even if you did know it's there as a customer and you found it and connected to it and were an expert, you don't have documentation for it necessarily. And it'll be very, very difficult for you to actually, get any use out of, the device. So if anything at all happens to the software in the device, if the place the software is stored is broken, if the software becomes corrupt, if you're doing a firmware update through an official channel and it somehow stops halfway through and doesn't finish or doesn't work properly, if, literally anything happens to that software, you now have no way to repair that software because you don't have the bits, you don't have the access, even if the hardware is in perfect condition.
Yep,
perfect
think of it like
condition hardware.
It's almost like it's a black box. Like literally, there is a black box that you cannot interact with in the device, and if the failure is inside of that black box, there is no way for you to open that box.
Right. It's like it's theoretically possible for you to fix it. Right. It's not inhumanly possible, but you do not have the information or the tools or the knowledge or whatever to actually do it. The only people who could do it would be the people who made the device. They would be able to access, and flash into your firmware on it, and you could send it back to them to have them fix it or something. Yep. Right. But
cars are like the perfect example here. Modern cars have chips in them that do a bunch of stuff. Old cars, there was analog logic and mechanical logic there. So even if you didn't have specialized tools, you could physically mess with that logic if you had the knowledge. Yep. But even if you have the knowledge, you're not connecting to your car's computer unless you're an ultra nerd. And a lot of the software you can download from the internet that does that is full of malware, so watch out.
Yeah, some people do figure out some of these interfaces, especially on more popular devices, and create tools or publish, black market or gray market-ish or free-ish, somewhat trustworthy tools that can allow you to help fix or modify the software on devices. Sort of like how routers, you can flash your own firmware on them, but those are almost general purpose real PCs with network cards and everything, right? They have an interface that you can understand, right? Sometimes they have SD cards.
So
right?
Luckily, bricking, like a device rarely gets bricked unless the user has taken some action or the device had an underlying fundamental problem. Like, for example, you might have a...
Well, sometimes there's bad luck, but it's just rare, right? Yeah. It's like, there's some flash memory chip that's like 16 megabytes. It has the OS on it, and it got messed up, and it's okay, right? It's still working, but because if it was actually broken, well, that would be broken, right? But even if you replace that part, well, you don't have the software to flash into it, right? Yep. But it doesn't happen too often.
Like if my phone's like battery or like charging circuit broke and I just couldn't use it anymore, I wouldn't say my phone was bricked. I'd say my phone broke.
Exactly.
But if I was doing a firmware update on my phone and the phone just like crashed and then power button didn't do anything anymore, that's a brick device. There's nothing wrong with that hardware.
Exactly. Somebody could repair it if they could flash it.
So I would wager, and I'm curious if you disagree, I think there are three things that cause the majority of all brickings. Number one, power interruption during an update on a device that did not have proper protections built in.
Yeah, that's pretty common. Yeah.
Number 2,
That's the cause of a lot of other problems as well, like losing save files. I think maybe like lots and lots of data corruption is because of that exact problem.
Yep. It's trivially solved if you just make the devices more expensive. People just aren't willing to for a lot of reasons.
Well, I think it's solved. Actually, Apple has a pretty good, a lot, and not only Apple, but a lot of companies do this where the device will just refuse to do a firmware update if it's not plugged in.
Yep.
Like
my phone won't do it unless
you can't firmware update your Apple Watch unless it's on the charger.
Yep. My phone will say something like it has to either be on the charger or the battery has to be above 90%.
Yeah, my GH5 camera won't, if you put a SD card in with a firmware update, it won't install it unless the battery is over like 90% or something.
The other thing to do that's common on more expensive devices is you have a second safe copy of the firmware embedded in the device in non-rewritable memory that can automatically bootstrap the system and replace whatever's in the broken memory. But that's
always
cost.
a good fallback unit. It's like, oh yeah, it adds to cost, but it is very nice when it's like, okay, my device is totally messed up. I think the Pebble Watch, I want to say, had this.
It had something like that.
It had something, because I remember I messed it up once and I held some buttons and did a thing and it was restored to the way it was when I got it in the mail and I had to re-update it. That's what I remember. I don't remember
it was
that
like,
memory is...
I have a similar memory where I had to do way more. Like there was a reset, and then there was like do this thing to fully fucking reset it.
There's a lot where it says like factory reset. Usually you can't do that if you're bricked because you have to access a menu. A lot of times factory reset just means reset all the settings back to the factory settings.
Yeah.
But sometimes devices do have a true factory reset whereby pushing certain buttons or in a certain configuration that you would never hit by accident actually does load a known good firmware from way back, and then you can try to update it again.
Yep. Number 2,
so that's always nice to have.
Yep, I think number 2, the second most common reason is hacker was fucking around with their software or their hardware and they broke it.
This is the one I call people out on all the time because it's listen, if you want to mess with your stuff, that's cool, right? It's like that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
right?
but eyes open, man. Like do it eyes open.
You want to run Doom on your calculator? That's sweet, right? The only time I wag my finger is when I see people. And I see this a lot, which really shocks me. Like, I would understand, like, if someone says, man, I was having fun trying to get Doom to run on my toaster, and I messed up, and now my toaster won't toast. I really messed up, guys. This sucks. I need to buy a new toaster now. But it's like, all right, that makes sense. If someone says, fuck this toaster company, right? Yep. I messed it. Why was it possible for me to mess up? It's like, you messed up your toast. You did it. Right? It's their fault.
Yep. Like, I messed with the firmware on my old camera, my GX1, because that camera's ancient. Like, if I ruined it somehow, not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. Of course, I didn't mess with it too much, because what I want to do with it, there's no firmware on Earth that'll make it do it, but...
Right, yeah. My advice, though, is just don't mess with a device software in an unofficial capacity, right? Unless you know what you're doing or are willing for that device to be bricked.
Yep, that's the second part is important. As long as you accept the risk that it might never work again and there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, then it's totally cool. Just go for it. But
like when I bought that PS1, I bought that PS1, I opened it, I soldered a mod chip into it. There was a chance I was going to ruin that PS1 forever. If I tried to return that PS1, it would not have flown, because what'd you do? You cracked
might have gotten away with it.
Oh yeah, I would have had to lie and I don't know, I opened the box, it didn't work.
That's the thing you would do.
That is exactly what I would have done. I would have gone right back to that Kmart and been like, hey, this PS1 didn't work, and hope that by the time a human cracked it open and saw my bungled soldering attempt, it was too late to track me down.
Uh-huh.
But there is a nuance to this one, though, because sometimes that bricking is because you're doing something that you shouldn't have done, that was dangerous, and it broke the device. You cannot expect the company that made that device to protect you from your own tomfoolery.
Right.
But
Nintendo
will do things to, like, companies like Nintendo have a history of trying to detect if you're running alternate firmware and brick you on purpose as a fuck you.
Yes, that's bullshit.
It's a similar situation, but I do not believe that companies should have the right. I think if you own hardware, you can do whatever you want with it, but it should be a two-way street. In return, that company does not have to support you in any way.
Exactly. It's pretty simple. That's what I think we have done an episode on right to repair, right? Yep. Which is which is actually a recurring topic that's come back a little bit recently. I think there's some. Is Massachusetts doing something right to repair? Is
I
it maybe
feel like Massachusetts has been doing something on right to repair my entire adult life.
I think it might be on their voting this thing.
I feel like that's happened before, though.
Massachusetts right to repair something.
I can't believe I spelled Massachusetts right. Typing very quickly.
Yeah, it's question 1 on their voting this year.
Oh,
right to
nice.
repair law, vehicle data access requirement initiative.
Fuck yeah.
So do research to figure out if yes or no is the right way to vote on question 1, Massachusetts. I'm not sure because I haven't read it. But you obviously want to vote in favor of the right to repair.
I see some text of it, and the text of the law says, starting with model year 2022, the law would require manufacturers of motor vehicles sold in the state to equip such vehicles that use any blah, 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 blah systems with access.
So you want to make that law happen. I assume voting yes is correct, but double check.
Yeah, read the whole thing. We don't live in Massachusetts.
Yeah. I literally
all
just,
in favor of the Springfield/porno bill.
Exactly. Make sure you vote in favor of repairing, right? So, but that's the thing is companies, Apple, right, has loosened up on this as they've been criticized, but they still have problems. John Deere is obviously always the number one culprit that's brought up here.
Cars are a big one, but
cars are huge.
But
in which basically the scam is that people make a device, and because of the possibility of bricking, right, and the secretness of the software, they're the only ones who have it. They can basically hold you hostage and force you to use their repair services and not use any other repair services, even when there's no reason for that, right? There might be some legitimate reasons for you to only use certain repair services.
Or there might be some changes you could make to that software that are or should be illegal because cars use public infrastructure.
That's true also. Or there are changes you could make to that hardware that would damage the business model of the person selling the hardware.
I don't care about your fucking business model, dude.
Yeah, I can just load any old games I want on my Nintendo Switch. It's now a play everything machine. It's got every emulator known to man.
But simultaneously, you sold me hardware. I'm running software on that hardware. You don't get to say what I do. I think there's a line there, like right to repair. Like any mechanic should be able to interface with any car's electronics, full stop. But there are definitely some things that an individual might do, like making their car more performant, but reducing the emissions protections that should be illegal. And we got to figure out the line there, which might come down to when your car gets inspected and it's determined that you've turned off the emission control, your car gets taken from you because you are violating the contract of society independent of your right.
That's a separate problem, is I think, just the penalties for car infractions are way too low.
Yep.
in general.
I think
not enforced well.
But anyway, I think the number 3 thing that causes brickings is the one that I'm the most mad about. But I think it's a distant third for now, but I think it's going to get worse and worse. Company has sold a device, hardware, like a speaker or something. Company then wants to monetize said hardware in perpetuity and bricks the hardware if the licensing is not paid to continue using the software.
Oh, that's similar to the right. Well, I guess that would be the 4th one, right?
Yeah.
It's still some sort of DRM thing, right? It's similar, but yeah, where the company basically, there's a device that they sell, a washing machine, right?
Yep.
Once that washing machine is in place, as long as, for getting right to repair, right? Assuming it works, you don't need the company that sold it to you anymore.
Yep. I don't want to modify it. I don't even need to repair it. I just wanted to keep doing what it's doing.
You pay them once. You now have a washing machine. It works. It's going to work forever until it breaks. By putting software in that washing machine, they can artificially force basically rent seeking, where it's like, well, because we put software in the washing machine, we can make it's like holding you hostage almost, or blackmailing or extorting you.
They might not demand money. It might be like, you have to let us collect data about you or we brick you.
Right. It's like, you have made you a washing machine, but we have software in there. And basically, if you don't, do what we say from now on and use your washing machine the way we want you to, and maybe buy a subscription service from us, or who knows what, right? Right, we're going to keep controlling you even though our transaction is complete, right? Oh, I see you've bought a music listening device. There's no reason that it couldn't just play music forever until it breaks. But oh, you want to use a battery from another third party, right? You don't want to buy batteries from us. Oh, you want to, listen to music from a company we don't like, oh, you want, it's like, all right, we're going to shut you down. We're going to force you to, stay with us. We're going to sort of keep a stranglehold on you because you bought our product. Obviously, don't buy those products that are doing that.
But also there should be we need some sort of rights of access and use. Like, yes, if I say I buy some smart light bulb,
those rent-seeking business models like that should just be outlawed, straight up.
Yep,
you shouldn't be able to do it.
We just need a very simple consumer protection that if you sell hardware, and obviously this is not the legal definition, this is the colloquial definition. If you sell hardware, it must come with the minimum necessary software to operate that hardware if software is necessary, and you have a right in perpetuity to use that software or to write, build, or derive equivalent software in the event that software becomes unusable. Something like that.
And the company that makes the device is not allowed to, remotely disable or hinder the device in any way.
They might not let you use their app and all their fancy stuff, but they have to let you do what the hardware did with that minimum software.
Right, exactly. So if you're offering, for example, the GoPro, right? There's a GoPro app you can get on your phone.
Yeah.
And they make you get a stupid GoPro account, right? You don't actually need the account, but the account gives you access to like this cloud service, which is garbage. You don't need that either.
Nah.
But it's like, okay, the cloud service, you're selling me some extra thing. I get you, right? But you can get the firmware updates without paying. But imagine if they were like, all right, you know what? Your GoPro isn't going to even record videos anymore, right? Yep. Unless you pay for our cloud service.
You got to pay $5 to use the HDMI out.
Yeah, it's like that would be some bullshit, right? Basically, it's just bullshit.
Yeah. All right, I think that was a good show. We've gone on over an hour.
Okay, fine.
Let's stop right there.